heard about this really interesting project called Undriving in Seattle. So I asked the founder and program director, Julia Field, to come join me and talk about it. And of course, we are coming Undriving. Let's stop and let's chat.
Thanks.
This is Peak Moment. We are living at a peak of human innovation, information, wealth, and health. But we're also at a peak of population and consumption, with rising temperatures and declining resources fueled by cheap oil and gas. Peak Moment Television, bringing you examples of positive responses to energy decline and climate change through local community action.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson, and my guest today here in Seattle is Julia Field, who's the founder and program director for a curious project called Undriving. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Great to be here.
When I heard about Undriving, I was like, what is this? So tell us, what do you mean by undriving?
Yeah. Well, undriving means getting around without a car. So that could be busing, biking, walking, skateboarding, any combination of things, and anything else that would get you there without a car, telecommuting. And one thing we talk about too is skipping the trip, which is a totally valid way of undriving as well.
So it counts if you just don't make a trip on the car at all. How did you come up with this idea of, well, tell us what your project kind of is.
Yeah. Well, Undriving started in 2007. I was involved with Sustainable Ballard, a neighborhood community group, and we were looking for a way to encourage people to leave their cars at home more often, and trying to think of what it would take to do that and how we could do that in a fun and playful way. And one day I just woke up with this word, undriving. I thought, that's it. That's just a fun way of saying it.
Yeah, it is.
And from there, it was a really short hop to the idea of an undriver license.
All right.
And so what we do is we issue undriver licenses to people who make a pledge to reduce their car use in the coming month in a way that might work for them.
Okay.
So they make a pledge and they get licensed. We set up our undriver licensing station at different festivals and fairs and schools and workplaces around the area. And people make a pledge. They get their photograph taken. There's a lot of self-expression involved. It's playful. It's fun.
You have really truly made it fun. I will add, so for our viewers to know, is that we went over to your undriver station that you were at, and got explained about the pledge and possibilities. And so I wrote my pledge, and you had these fun props that we could have our picture taken with.
Yeah.
Which is a brilliant idea. I came on my bike because I want to get an undriver license.
Excellent.
What does it take? Besides doing a Peak Moment show, in which case I hope all of you do less driving in your cars. But beyond that, I think what I can pledge to, like in the next month, is I'm going to aim to do all of our grocery shopping. Robin and I will do all of our grocery shopping on bike. All groceries by bike.
Great.
Okay.
You will take your picture.
And there's the camera. So one, 2, 3. Got it. So you can take it.
I'm a citizen
anywhere.
of the planet Earth.
Yeah.
That is, yeah, that's nice.
My wife and I recently.
What a great picture.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
You're doing good things
Good
here.
things, I think so.
And so right there on the spot. I mean, it was really lovely. I didn't have to wait in the mail like the regular driver's license.
Right.
You put it together and laminated it and gave it to us.
Yeah.
And
we make them on the spot. And I think the main thing that happens with people is this whole idea of an undriver license. It kind of sparks people to think differently and to really question their own assumptions about how they get around. And no matter where you are on the undriving spectrum, there's always something we can do, something more we can do to either reduce our own car use or affect reducing car use on the planet. And that's one of the really interesting things that a lot of people will pledge if they do drive a lot or have a car, they'll make a pledge to try taking the bus more often, or to try bike commuting. And that sometimes means that the first step in their pledge is to find a safe route, because that's what's in the way. So really it's an opportunity to kind of think about, well, what could I do and what's in the way of it, and really start teasing it apart to something tangible that they could actually do. And then people who already commute by bus or bike all the time, or don't even have a car, it's really fun for them to see that there's this whole wealth of things that they could do as well.
I liked what you suggested, is that each of us in our pledge find something doable that's still a stretch.
Yeah.
Which is really a great combination.
And really it's about designing our own experiment. And we're the scientist, we're the lab rat, you know, we're setting this up for ourselves, and we get to figure it out. And that's one of the things that I think makes it work, because we can share a lot of ideas of what other people have come up with, and but really it's kind of about tapping into your own curiosity, resourcefulness, and creativity, and seeing what you might want to try for yourself.
I think that's what makes this so much more engaging than, say, an educational awareness program only, which is just ideas going in one direction, because you're asking people to think of their own ways, so it works for them personally. And their creativity, which people enjoy getting to exercise.
Yeah, it's true.
You know,
and really, I think we all have assumptions that we don't really question. You know, we might think the bus is too inconvenient, or I need my car to get to this destination, and if we haven't really taken that apart to look at it, and there's something about the playfulness of this that just sparks our curiosity, and people, when they see new possibilities, they get really excited, and you know, they've come up with a pledge that they're like, I really want to try that. And what people come up with is just, we couldn't make this up.
like what? Give me an example.
Well, one of my favorite pledges, actually, John Raymer came to get licensed, and he thought about what he could do.
I'm going to pause for a minute. The woman behind you is skateboarding, rollerblading, right, with her ski poles. I mean, there's an undriver. There's a fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. I'll give you a lead in. You ready? You with us?
Yeah.
This gal that's on the rollerblading, I mean, that's just one of the possibilities, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different ways to undrive, and we don't even know what they all are, which is why, well, we have these endorsements on our license.
Okay.
Kind of like the endorsement you might get on your driver license. But ours are for walking, biking, transit, train, skip the trip, telecommute, car share.
Sail.
And then we have other, which is always really fun. Well, on yours, you put anything possible.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm game. There were paddle boarders out here on the water, and people sailing, and I'm sure that there's things we haven't even thought of yet, right?
Yeah,
that
definitely.
does make it fun.
Yeah.
That does make it fun.
And one of the things that's really very viable is combinations of modes.
Sure.
I really consider the bus-bike combination to be an undriving mode in itself. So,
and I think it's important to remember that things like sharing the car is good. I think in rural areas like ours, where we don't have very good bus service, that's going to be the most viable for us.
Yeah.
Now, I interrupted you with this gal rollerblading. You started to tell me your favorite story.
Well, this is one of them, one of many. John pledged, he thought about what he could do to reduce his car use, and he realized that every time he left the house, he automatically got in the car. And so his pledge was to take his car key off his key ring. And that led to a real big transformation in his life, because every time he went to leave the house, he had to think about, you know, do I need the car for this trip? And he really started walking, taking the bus, other things.
What a neat trick to give yourself.
Yeah, we had someone else who, her pledge was to get directions before she left. You think about how many miles she must have saved, and how her stress level must have gone down as well.
Wow,
and
sure. So she could go direct instead of meandering
around in circles.
Yeah. Those are.
Yeah. So as people come up with their own pledge and start conducting their own experiment, they start making discoveries. And with both of those, you know, health and stress levels, all sorts of things change.
Yeah.
We've had people, one man said that he pledged to try riding his bike a few days to work. By the end of the month, he had decided actually he was riding every single day. He had lost 30 pounds and his chronic health problem had gone away, all because he got on his bike. And so there's just things that we don't expect.
That's,
Yeah.
there's health benefits, as you know. There's also just the benefits of getting to know your community. Since we've come here to Seattle and have been biking a lot, I mean, I'm seeing bushes and flowers and people with dogs up front and personal, not with this box between me and them. It's really more, I would say, more friendly.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of community connections that happen.
Yeah.
One woman pledged to try taking the bus to work, and she emailed a week later and she said that she was getting off the bus every day and saying thank you to the driver for taking her to work, and she just wasn't driving around looking for parking and was arriving on time and not stressed and all this stuff. And then a couple weeks later she emailed again and reported that there was this whole community of people at her bus stop who she was getting to know. They were there at the same time every day, and so she was meeting more neighbors who she hadn't met. You know, when we get in our cars and just go up the driveway, there's just that much less interconnection.
So how many Undrivers have you licensed so far?
Well, we've licensed over 5,000 now.
Wow.
Yeah, and we really quickly saw that this wasn't just a neighborhood, our neighborhood kind of thing, that we had something really very viable here. We started getting inquiries from all over the country about it and invitations to bring our station around.
So are you expanding this in some
well,
ways?
what we're looking at actually, there's only so much we can do, and what we'd really like to do is get more people carrying out the program. And one of our challenges with that was finding a system for making the licenses that was simple enough to be scalable and also affordable enough. So,
think you've landed on that?
Well, we have, after some ado and many different ways of doing this. We actually reconnected with a group that we had met right at the beginning. There's a program called My ID Club that issues ID cards for kids as a community service, and it's run through the King County Police Union. And when we very first started, we knew we wanted to make Undriver licenses, but we didn't know how we were going to make them. And we saw this group at a festival in Ballard, and I called them up and asked how we could get some equipment like theirs. And they said, well, would you like to borrow ours? So that's how we started. And we then went very high tech after that being low tech, and we were now kind of coming to rest in the middle, and again joining with them. They are now working on scaling their program nationally to other law enforcement agencies, and have a really great equipment set up that does what we need it to do as well. And so they're going to be our sort of equipment arm, and we're packaging up the whole Undriver program into a kit that we'll make available to other groups.
So if other communities want to follow in your footsteps here, one step, of course, is what you're packaging together for your equipment. Right. What else? I mean, how would they contact you? Let's start there.
Well, we have a website, undriving.org, and there's a lot of information there, a lot of stories about what Undrivers are up to. But that's the best way to get in touch.
There.
We also have a Facebook community that's growing, and we're Twittering as well. So, yeah.
If you could have the whole dream of what Undriving could become? Tell us what your vision would be.
Well, I would love to see Undriver licensing happen in a lot of different communities. I think we have a program that's very effective at engaging people. It really does lead to behavior change. And there's a lot of other entities out there who have a mandate to reduce car use, be they transit agencies, workplaces in Washington State. There's a commute trip reduction requirement by the state that employers all reduce car trips to the office.
Okay.
Within schools, there's a lot of reasons for kids to be biking and walking to school, and there's the whole Safe Routes to School movement. So I think there really are a lot of entities that would have an interest in carrying out undriver licensing, and I think we have a creative way of engaging people to think differently. And it really does lead to change. We've been doing follow-up surveys with undrivers at the end of the month, and they report we've been getting like a 20 to 40% response, which is
excellent.
Really high. It shows a passion for what they're discovering and their engagement. 96% say that they've followed through on their pledge, and over 70% say they established a new habit or pattern as a result. And then they just share a lot of anecdotes and stories about what they have discovered and the kinds of changes that come from this. And the other piece of it is we heard that there was people wanted to share their licenses with others. People post them on their Facebook and other things. And so we started asking, have you shared your license or talked to others about undriving? And 86% said yes. And one man in his survey really early on said, I feel like you gave us permission to raise the issue with others.
And
that's
right.
Such a powerful thing, and it's really something that we don't even do in this culture. We don't talk to each other about things like that.
It's people
kind
are
of
not
taboo
comfortable
almost.
to talk about changing your habits. It's sort of like, you know, people bristle at that.
But this is like a conversation starter.
It
in
is.
this very non-confrontational way to just bring it up.
And in fact, that was one of the suggestions that one of your staff at the driver station gave to me. Is like, well, you could just use this to just, you know, whip it out instead of your driver license when they ask you for your ID, the clerk. And I'd done it, and it just gave me that moment to say, well, I'm just doing this because I'm pledging to, you know, and I talk about undriving, and I could see that they kind of, you could just see the little click go, oh, I hadn't quite thought about that. It's wonderful.
Well, I think, you're wearing yours on your jacket. People put them on their commuter bags. We had one woman say, I wear it on my commuter bag everywhere I go, as long as I'm undriving. But only when I'm undriving. But I think it just, people enjoy showing it and talking with others. It starts them thinking. I guess I think of each one of these as like a ripple, a stone dropped in a pond, and we don't know what the effect is going to be.
It is a carte blanche to being able to talk about the things that need to change in our culture. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. How did you tell us a little bit about your story? You obviously were of this wavelength earlier than this.
Well, about 6 years ago, I had a car accident. I had this 1987 Honda Civic hatchback, 100,000 miles. It probably would have taken me for another 100,000. But I got into this car accident, and I just wasn't paying attention. And my car was not worth repairing. So first I decided not to fix it, and then I decided not to replace it. But it was really from a not an empowered choice that I was making. I was actually scared of my capacity to be so inattentive. And I really thought at that time, oh my gosh, my life as I know it is over. I'm not going to be able to do any of the things I like to do. It's going to be so hard to get around without a car. How can I manage? And what was so interesting was that I just really discovered that I really didn't need it at all. And so many things were very possible on foot. I happened to live in a very walkable neighborhood. I could bicycle a lot more. There were bus routes I didn't even know about going by my house. And even things that were further away, if I changed how I approached it, if I, connected with other people a little more, many things were possible. And I got fairly quickly to the point where I felt like I just don't even want a car ever again. And
how long did that take you to shift that feeling?
That's a good question. I would say it was within a few months probably that I just felt like I really don't need one. And it came from the necessity of just needing to get around without it. But I never would have even tried this had it not been for the accident. So
for your necessity became the mother of invention for you, for your life.
Yeah. So through this, through that I discovered that I didn't really need a car, and I'm hoping that through Undriving, some other people, through much smaller and less radical shifts, could make their way to that kind of decision, and in a much more empowered way.
Well, sometimes the universe has to kick us to move, and what I love is that you took that and grabbed it as an opportunity, and not only that, it led to your empowering a whole lot of people to do it by choice. Which is easier for most of us.
The other thing that's really interesting about that is that it's so much about just shifting our thinking and our awareness. And I mean, I really do think of Undriving as an awareness practice. We're looking, shining a little light in some area that we hadn't been aware of and trying something a little different, and that expands things. But until we know we're not aware of something, we can't do anything about it.
That's true.
So,
You've got to be aware, and then you can see about making changes. I will add, with a bit of envy, that you live in a place that makes the range of choices much wider.
Right.
And thus I'd love to see Undriving happening in every city or any good-sized town where there are a variety of choices. But what you get me to thinking is that undriving or driving less, because one of those little things you could pledge is to help have there be less car driving anywhere by anybody.
Yeah.
And I realized that it can be us ourselves or the people we know or in our community. There's just lots of ways to help have fewer drivers. And thus it wasn't, and thus all the being an undriver doesn't mean you have to live in a city to do that.
No.
Which is really empowering to others as well.
And in fact, in different places, even different neighborhoods that we've taken this, we've found a little bit of different character of the kinds of pledges people make. We did an event on Bainbridge Island, and over there, what we started finding people pledging and then encouraging people to pledge was in the direction of what I've started calling mundane carpooling. Like if you're going to the grocery store, for example, to invite a neighbor to join you. And we don't really think about taking trips like that by carpooling, but just by doing that, you're taking one car off the road.
Of course,
and one trip is missing. And so even in areas, even in real suburban areas, you can undrive in different ways, even if the bus service isn't so good. There's just, there are a lot more possibilities than we tend to think of. So it's really just about sparking new ideas and then sharing those too, because one idea leads to another.
And I can see that if what you do is you say to your neighbor, say the neighbor, is getting older, and we have, I mean, it strikes me that undriving has a lot of possibilities for the aging population too, is by reaching out to your neighbor to say, want to come to the grocery store with me? And at some time when that neighbor is sick, you may say, would you like me to pick up some groceries for you? That inadvertently what you're doing is you're creating a social web here of support for one another that has been shredded by our cars, if you think, I mean, in respects, all of us in our separate little vehicles. So there's more, I bet you if you start collecting the stories, or are you doing that? Are you collecting the emails?
We are collecting stories and want to do more with sharing them. We did just finish a series of videos that we produced about some undriver stories. And
so people can come watch and see other people's stories.
And love to get more flow of that going, but there's
Wow. So in our last few minutes here, are there other things that we haven't covered that are sort of dear to your heart about undriving?
Well, I wanted to mention Intercity Transit in Olympia, which is our first affiliate our founding partner affiliate, and they are going to be carrying out the Undriver licensing program. We're just getting started with them, and they are the transit authority in Thurston County. They also run programs, Safe Routes to School programs in about a dozen schools, as well as work with employers in commute trip reduction.
Wow.
So it's really a great place for us to be able to plant this program through them and just really see what it can do. Also, I'm hoping we can pilot some ideas for planting it in a school and letting it sort of spread through the school and go person to person. I think there's a lot of potential for kids.
Could be a great, I mean,
Yeah.
kids with their bikes and their Undriver license, and
yeah.
the whole thing could be really pretty, pretty extremely happy.
We've gotten a great response from people of all ages, but I'm really excited about the kids who, of course, are the next generation, and the more we can get them excited about, or they can get excited about getting around without a car, the better it is for our planet.
And they're set to go. I mean, they need to be on that different footing compared to how it was when when I was growing up, and the car was of course. Yeah. And that's great. Well, thank you. This has been a bit brisk and wonderful, and I just commend you for taking your experience, which you say wasn't the best, and turning that around for yourself, and then being the birth mother, if you will, of a fabulous idea. I hope it spreads very far, very wide, and a lot of carbon doesn't go into the atmosphere because of you personally. Well, I hope we're doing our part. Oh, absolutely. You know, Al Gore in his new book talks about 3 things we need to do to change the course here, and the first one is changing the way we think. Yes. And that's really the frontier that Undriving is working on. Yes, yes. Changing the way we think. Well, you're watching Peak Moment. We're doing our part. Julia and the Undriving Project are doing their part, and we hope you are too. Join us next time.